Hello, everyone. Nice to see you. Nice to hear you. I hope the technique is working and we are live. Nice to see you to the second, or welcome to the second event of this kind. So it's not historical like the first one, because the first one is, of course, historical, but nevertheless, one which is very interesting, I'm sure. We will talk today about POS cloud solutions and, of course, how to use them in the fiscal environments, about the challenges and maybe some advantages and disadvantages and so on. But let me first give you some points about this event. So this is so-called retail talks. Why? Because we are talking about the retail. And of course, we want to talk about the fiscalization as well. So in many cases, we will combine the most interesting topics in the retail world with, of course, fiscalization, because we see us as a fiscal experts and we know lots of about the fiscal topics. So we want to talk about that. Okay, so we have several events already defined, and you can find all of them on our LinkedIn page. If you go to the section LinkedIn events on our page, Fiscal Solutions page, you will see the list of all events that we are planning in the following weeks. And let's say every second Tuesday at 3 o'clock p.m., we will have one retail talk. And you will see the next one will be related to the German fiscalization. Then we will have one about research and development and so on. So there will be lots of interesting topics. We are streaming also on YouTube and Facebook. So if you want to join us over there, that's fine. It's up to you to choose the platform. And let me tell you that we have also recording of this event. So if you are not available to join us during the session, no worry. Just go to our, let's say, YouTube channel, for example, and enjoy the recorded stream at the same time. Your hosts today are Roland and myself, Darko. Nice to see you, Roland, again. It's my pleasure always to talk to you because you have so many real-life experiences. So it's really nice to talk to you.
Thank you.
Let me...
Yeah, okay.
Great. Let me first give you some words about our company. And I promise you it will be very short because we have just 4 products, so it's very easy to explain them. As the name is saying, we are fiscal experts. We are focusing 100% on the fiscal laws around the world. And let's say we have those 4 products, which I will just briefly explain to you. First product is Internet Portal, where we put all the documentation, fiscal documentation, and country-specific documentation on one place for you, so that you don't need to search around the world for the right documents. You just go there, type in your credentials, and whoop, like Germans say, you have the documents that you need. So it's quite good to save time and money and everything. Product number 2 are consulting workshops that we are offering to our customers if they want to understand the requirements of certain countries that we are serving. They just talk to our consultancies, technical and legal, and these guys explain them all the details, how to implement the country version of the software that they have to use over there. Product number 3 is a software component. It's a fiscal middleware that you can easily integrate in your POS solution, and then you don't need to develop by yourself, or maybe just part, let's say the integration definitely, and you are good to go in that country. So it's a, let's say, from the perspective of time to market, perfect way to be in the new country. And the 4th one, and this is something very, I think, unique in the world. So we are providing fiscal help desk. This is something which is quite good, especially for the POS software vendors, which are far away from the installation base. Let's assume POS software vendor from US has installation on the retailer side in Romania. It's very difficult for him to understand how to support day-by-day business from the fiscal perspective, fiscal point of view, for those retailers in those countries which are far away from him. In that case, we can help, of course, and provide even legal and whatever technical and so on related support as well. So you see, 4 products, very easy to explain. Okay, now, Roland, can I ask you, please, to give us just a couple of words about yourself? Then I will introduce myself, and then we will dig into the details about the cloud-based solutions.
Okay, so my name is Ronald Richevsky. I'm working in fiscal solution, and I'm actually in IT long time ago. I started in 1986 first time and touched the keyboard, and it was always my hobby to go with computers and programmings. And then later on, together with colleagues, we started the company in 2004. Yeah, so it's already 17 years. So actually, I can say I have some experience in last 17 years in retail area. And in last, I think, 10 years, we are really focused on the fiscal area. So I'm also familiar a little bit with fiscalization, yeah.
Thank you, Roland. So my story is quite similar, but it started also in Serbia many years ago, so I'm already quite old. I was born in Serbia, but I lived in Croatia after that. And then after some years, I moved to Germany. I studied over there and lived over there. And then I moved to Dubai. I lived over there as well for a couple of years. And then I moved back to Germany. Today, I'm located in beautiful Hamburg in Germany. And of course, I'm still traveling as long as this situation is allowing it, that we know that it's not so easy in the moment. So I started, or my first employer, was the Diebold Nixdorf many years ago. And to be honest, this was my only employer that I ever had. I was there for a couple of years, or actually around 10 years and even more, so quite a long time. Moving from one department to another, starting from the sales, then moving to the project development department, and then moving to the software development. So I was a lucky guy to know all those areas of the retail, which are very important, of course. And then I left the company and decided to create my own company together with Roland. And there is a Borislav as well as the third owner. We created a company that is now talking to you called Fiscal Solution. So if you have any questions about Roland's history or my history or company as well, please do not hesitate, just ask us. Let me give you now some words, or let's go first into the detail, let's say, about cloud solutions. But before we go into the typical, let's say, retail cloud solution, I would like to discuss a little bit the cloud solution by itself, to make a small introduction. What is cloud and how do we understand it? To be honest, most of the people, and I'm sure you know that, most of the people understand cloud as a kind of web-based application, which is running somewhere on one server or several servers, where you can do something with the graphical interface, or maybe in some cases you can use some kind of web service to consume, let's say, some kind of functionalities. It's a web-based application which you are paying as you are using it, like a rental fee or something like that. So hosting fee. This is typically how people understand the cloud environment and cloud solutions. But I'm sorry, this is not really cloud solution. This could be part of it, but it's not. So if you take official definitions, what is the cloud solutions, then I can read it for you. It's a cloud compute, or cloud computing is an internet-based, on-demand access to computing resources. So this is very interesting. So it's on demand, means as you need, access to computing resources. So now let's see what are the computing resources. And then we have all the pieces of the picture and it will be totally clear. So what are the computing resources? This can be everything what you need in order to run some kind of computer-related task. This can be software, of course, but this can be hardware as well, like server hardware or whatever. This can be operating system, running in the virtual machine or not, network infrastructure, storage, software frameworks for development, and so on and so on. So all these resources that you need in order to fulfill a certain task are computing resources. And now, if you use them as you need, and of course you are paying them as you need and as you use them, this is the cloud-based computing, and this is the cloud solution and cloud environment. So you see already in the definition of the cloud, there is I think, very important and even the biggest benefit of the cloud architectures. And this is that you are paying what you are using and you are just using what you just need. So you never buy the machine, which is very big, and then you use just a part of that and maybe 10% of the processor or whatever. So you need exactly, or you pay and use exactly what you need. So some months ago, I saw some investigations. I think this was a market research from McKinsey, investigating why do retailers start with a cloud-based solutions. And this was also very interesting for me. So there are maybe, I think, 4 or 5 points which those guys pointed out as the most important for the retailers. On the number one or first place was the big data. Of course, you can imagine that retailers are producing millions and millions of transactions, and this is a huge amount of data. But if you don't use them, if you don't find the value in those data, then you are just having them and okay, so that's nothing then in that case. So they want to use those data because it can be very powerful. And this is perfect for the cloud-based computing. You can use the storage as you need, you can use the tools to analyze them as you need, and so on. And if we are talking about the tools as you need, artificial intelligence, it's a big element of the, let's say, every cloud platform that I know. So this is the second reason why the retailer are going into the direction of cloud-based computing, artificial intelligence. The third point was development platforms, because it's quite, let's say, convenient to use all the software development tools which are existing in those environments. You don't have to leave this environment. You don't need to buy infrastructure locally where you are developing. You are using the remote infrastructure to develop your tools, your applications that are running at the same time in the cloud. So it's really convenient. And then we have, of course, big point related to the easier and more flexible data storage and backups. Definitely, if you have lots of data that you are producing, you will have probably big issues to organize your backups, and it's great if you can use it in the cloud. So this is the, let's say, fourth reason for the retailer. And the fifth one, which is, I think, let's say, logical and based on all others, these are the costs. If you are having all those benefits and if you are paying just as you are using, you are able to reduce your costs. Okay. So today we are talking, let's say, with lots of different retailers, and I can see, we can call it like a trend, let's say, which part of their infrastructure are they moving to the cloud. So let's say first there are two kinds of retailers. One kind which is already moving into the cloud, which already has something in the cloud, and the others which are just thinking about it. So if we are talking about those retailers which are already in the cloud, then we can see that they are moving more back office related processes, more or less, or workflows into the cloud, and they are not really touching the stores. There are, of course, retailers which are trying to push and to implement or migrate the POS application as well in the cloud, but it's just now starting. It's more common that the retailers are developing workflows in the cloud. If we think about the POS part, which is used, or the retailers which are even using the POS as a cloud, then we can see it more or less more in the fashion area. So the fashion retailers are more using the cloud solution, POS cloud solution, than others, and the smaller retailers. I don't know why, but the smaller retailer, for them, it's probably much easier to use the cloud infrastructures than for the big one. Okay. Another interesting trend which we see is that the retailers are moving into the product business related to the cloud. This means they recognize that the cloud business could be very profitable, very interesting, and they are starting to create and provide cloud infrastructure. So if you see Amazon, of course, retailer, which created today the world-leading platform, cloud platform, they are selling it. They are retailers, so they are selling the new product, and new product is called cloud. There are other retailers doing the same, like, for example, Alibaba from China. They're providing also the same cloud-based platform and selling it to others as well. And even in Germany, and that's where I was quite surprised, several years ago, I think 2 years ago, the very well-known retailer in Germany, Schwarz Group, so Lidl is belonging to them, you know that, created a new company called Stack IT. And this company is just providing cloud environment, cloud solutions for whoever you want. They're mostly targeted, or the biggest target for them is the business, not the retailer, but general business. But they are doing what they are the best in, let's say. They created a product, it's called cloud, and they are selling it. Okay, so this is a trend that we see as well. On the side of the POS software provider, we see, of course, two different trends. One big trend is that the big, let's say, very well-known, worldwide leading provider of POS software are definitely moving into the cloud and creating POS applications which are cloud-based, like, for example, GK, Extenda, Oracle Symphony, and so on. all those companies are having great strategies and producing great POS software in the cloud. But we see a second trend as well, and these are the smaller startups, mostly, for example, from US. They are not even thinking about physical stores. They are starting from the scratch, from in the cloud, let's say, and they don't talk about anything else. As I try them to explain that there are fiscal printers, for example, which are hardware-based in the store, and that it will be difficult to access them, they ask us why. There are usually interfaces, network interfaces, we will use them and that's it. So this is like generation set, totally different scope and way of thinking. Because of this and those startups, I'm sure 100% that cloud-based POS solution will come. This will definitely be the future of each and every retailer. Anything else doesn't make sense. But it will take some time because there are definitely some challenges which still have to be, let's say, solved in the environment, or let's say cloud environment, if you want to use it in the store on the POS. So this was a short overview about the cloud solution and trends that we see. Rocky, could you give us some more input, let's say, about the challenges that I'm just talking about?
Yeah. So there are many benefits of using the cloud. Of course, someone will say just the sky is a limit. There is a lot of benefits like scalability, infrastructure and services, mobility, security, etc. But always, on the other side, with same package, it will come some challenges, and they has to be solved if you go in industrial environment. For example, one most obvious challenge is the offline scenario when the infrastructure, cloud infrastructure is not accessible because there is no internet. So there are several solutions for it. For example, one is just to ignore it. So simply, if you don't have an internet, you don't work. So it's acceptable some kind of businesses, but mainly for the bigger retailers, it's not acceptable. So they need to have possibility to have communication with the cloud infrastructure. So, and there are two approaches usually which can be done. One is to invest in infrastructure to backup line for networking, and second one to implement some local applications which will run if there is no presence of internet. But this will be then complicated because actually you must probably go to developing another application which will be used as offline, because you need to support all functionality or almost all functionality, especially for the sales, which are implemented in the cloud. You need to implement it locally. I saw many applications, they use some light, for example, implementation like a reject or Ajax, where then you need to implement a lot of functionality which is done on server side. In addition to that, just to be more complex, for example, there are a lot of hardware in the modern store. So you have a self-checkouts, you have a different hardwares which are connected to the cash register. Typically, for example, we have a different POS peripherals like a POS printer, scanners, cash drawer, and especially there is a lot of old type of infrastructure which usually has to be reused. These old type of devices can be even connected with the old type of interface like RS-232 or USB, and even can be the command based, which is not fit nice in the cloud environment. And if you want to keep these kind of devices, then it will be different challenges. Like, for example, performance. In every communication type of device, you need to have a lot of interaction with device. So it will slow down the performance of the communication with the device. Then we have event management issue. For example, if you have a paper, there is no paper in the printer. If you want to show some information to the cashier, you need to handle these events, which is coming from the device to the cloud solution. Then you have a different error handlings, which can be really painful in countries where there is a software certification of the PS application, because there is certain rules which has to be fulfilled in order to get a certification of the software. And of course, if we have this command-based communication, there we must probably ensure some device locking until the one transaction is not finished, because To execute one transaction, you will need to perform several steps, and it's not acceptable that you get different instructions or commands for different cloud clients. Next important thing is it's a device sharing. Device sharing is a natural in the cloud environment, and usually it's very useful. But on the other side, it's challenge how to synchronize different multiple POS application which is running on the cloud and different devices, especially if we are talking about old-fashioned devices. Then we can have also the legal challenges. In some countries, there is some regulation which force you to have a local component. For example, in Serbia, there is a so-called local processor of the fiscal receipt, which has to be placed locally and has to store data locally. So even if you want, you cannot have a pure cloud solution. You need to have some mixture. Also, for example, in Germany, communication between the POS application and the cloud solution must be with the fiscal TSC must be secured and certified by the government, and you need to have some kind of cloud connector installed in the store. So this also bring additional complexity. And on end up, if you even somehow pass these challenges, you may have a challenges to integrate device itself, because the old infrastructure usually are supported by supplier by all drivers. For example, there are fiscal drivers or UPOS drivers with different devices. They are all made and created for the old kind of infrastructure, and they not support modern infrastructures, and they not support the device sharing. Luckily, there is an ongoing work in the new standards in OMG, where we also participate in this creation of the new UPOS 2 standards, which is exactly trying to solve all these challenges and try to be better and most suitable for the new kind of environments.
Let's stick maybe to some of the points which I think are very important. For example, old hardware. In the introduction, I told you that the smaller retailers are usually going, or they are more flexible, let's say. They're going using the cloud-based POS is a little bit easier, let's say. And if we combine this now with the fact that the retail is very old-fashioned and they are really not investing in the new things if they are really not forced either by market or by customer or by whatever. This means the using of old hardware is really showstopper for them in order to use the POS-based cloud or cloud-based POS. So what do you think about that if you go more into detail about the old hardware?
It can be showstopper, but there is always a possibility to do something, but then you need to put some effort. And then I can say that sometimes this effort may be too expensive if you don't have enough volume. For example, if you go in smaller projects and you need to integrate this kind of hardware, I think the investment to do and manage this integration will be quite high. So either you need to think about outsourcing or trying to use solutions from some other suppliers, or to change hardware. So you need to be good in Excel sheets. So you need to put all these values and calculate and see what is the result, and then decide what you should to do and which approach to select.
Yeah, but now if I think about the retailers, for example, typically in the food retailing, where you have lots of different stores, or maybe hundreds or even thousands, and in each of them you have several printers to exchange all of them to put the new modern printer which can communicate with the cloud, it's really expensive, right?
It can be a huge investment, yes.
Yeah. If we are talking about the new printers which are supporting or even new hardware, not just the printer, but mostly printers, which are supporting the cloud-based communication. I saw, let's say, in several cases, I think the Epson is producing such a kind of printer, Diebold as well, I think, where you have inside the printer some kind of not web service, but even web server, more or less, web server. And you can establish the communication with send a transaction in XML, and printer will handle everything else. This is much easier to use in the cloud environment, right?
Yes, it's easier, but in some countries, this kind of device is not available. Also, if, for example, there is a LAN network-based connection, it's also depend of communication type. In case you can do the operation as a single transaction, then it's more convenient for the cloud. But if you need to support events, and also if, for example, communication has to be done in several steps, this increase the communication complexity and also the error handling, because it's much more easier to handle error if you have a single message communication, if you compare to have a multiple message which has to be combined, and you need to check result of every message and build some error logic behind that.
I think events is a really good, really good word, and I think this is very important. So let's talk about that a little bit. In typical fiscal environment, software-based fiscalizations, let's say, you have a kind of communication between POS and some kind of governmental service, which is usually cloud service, let's say, where you have to send your transaction and you get the feedback that everything is fine and that you can continue with your transactions. So actually, there is no communication. It's just one. You send your data and you get back okay or not okay. So this is not communication. If you want
a more synchronous communication, so
that's what I mean. Yeah,
good for implementation. Yes,
it's easy. But if you have a printer and if you have a hardware devices in the store, then you have asynchronous communication. Am I right? Because then you have to discuss some points. Do you have paper? Yes. Okay. Shall I change it? Do you have paper jam? Okay.
Yes.
So it's a
sometimes the communication can be triggered by the device in the store. So which then have an opposite direction of communication. And we had experience, it's not just a technical problem to implement it, also from the security point of view, it's hard to support it, because usually people from security, they don't like to allow the components to connect on that direction. Yeah?
So this means if you have a purely cloud-based POS solution, so this means you don't have nothing installed in the stores, but you have to use on the POS the hardware, whatever. It doesn't mean if it's new or old. You will have, or you are in the situation that you have to establish the communication between cloud POS and local device. So now imagine the situation: the customer is coming, the cashier is scanning everything, and now the receipt should come out. But there are some trouble. So the POS is sending transaction. Cloud POS is asking, is the fiscal printer or printer roll free? Can I use it? Printer is sending, yes, you can. Then the cloud is asking, now I will send you transaction. Is it okay? Printer says, yes, it's okay. Now printer is receiving transaction. Now printer has a problem. There is a paper jam. Now printer is sending message to the cloud. Sorry, I'm out of the paper. Please tell to the cashier to change the paper. So the cloud is sending the message to the screen, showing, you have a paper jam, or you are out of the paper, exchange it. So now imagine, and the customer is all the time in front of the cashier waiting that the communication between cloud and the printer is finished. In many cases, this time delay in the communication could cause that you need several seconds for the transaction. And in many retail concepts, it's not acceptable. Maybe in a slow-moving goods like fashion, maybe, or very expensive goods where you have just one product per transaction, where you have enough time to handle it, where you can talk to the customer and so on, then it's not the issue, the timing that you need for the communication. Then you can easily use, or better use, cloud-based communication. But if you have a discounter which has to do just go, scan, there is no time for communication with the cloud because whatever, right?
Yes, and then if you want to fulfill this performance, then you need to think how to solve. There are several solutions, but of all these solutions, you need to spend some time and efforts. So one solution, which usually they try to make a communication directly from the client. For example, the browser, you can use the JavaScript and try to connect and make this communication locally, which has also some benefits because you don't have a communication outside the store. Another side, it's more complex for implementation. Another approach can be that you put something between the PS application, cloud PS application, and the fiscal device locally, which then will take a complete transaction and try to execute this communication and solve this integration problem locally. So there are something which can help, but of course this all approach require careful planning and of course additional investment and costs for sure.
Yeah, that's why I'm very, let's say, amused when the startups are just, no problem, we are just using network based. But in the future, I think the solution of those problems will move to the hardware device itself. So they will handle this issue in the printer, because there is no reason to put it into the POS. Why should not printer has this intelligence, let's say, so just to receive transaction and do whatever is needed. So basically, this is how our middleware is working. We are getting transaction. We are telling POS, don't worry, take care about everything else. And I will take care about the fiscal issue, about printing, maybe even in some cases about this or that. So, right? So this would be the same or very similar.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I will use this. I will use this bridge to our middleware just to give you some ideas about what is our planning for the future, because you have to understand our situation. We have lots of customers which are still, let's say, old-fashioned customers, which want to use locally installed software, POS software, with all security concepts so that they are able to work offline in any moment and so on one side. On the other side, they are moving more and more workflows like business processes in the cloud, but this is more back office related processes. So this is one kind of the customers that we have and that we have to serve. And the other kind of the customers are those smaller retailers or even fashion chains and so on, which want to be 100% cloud. So we have to serve them as well. The solution that we have today, it's web-based. We can communicate over web service, but it's not native cloud solution. So this means we are not able to use all those great benefits of scalable resources and so on, which is cloud bringing by the nature. That's why we decided to move partially, let's say, into the native cloud solution. So to port our middleware partially into the cloud. But as we have the customers which wants to stick to the offline world in the store, we will have a local solution as well. We will continue with that development as well. So we will have in total some kind of hybrid solution. And there are such a cloud solutions which are partially cloud, partially locally installed. So this is the way which we think that we will go. As we started the development and thinking about architecture and everything, we analyzed the situation in the world regarding the cloud-based platforms, let's say, and we analyzed many of the leading providers of them. We analyzed, of course, all of them which are well known. At the end, we ended up with 3 of them. But we analyzed also IBM's, Oracle's, Alibaba as well, and we ended with 3 of them, which are the leaders, and it's Google, it's Amazon, of course, and it's Microsoft. But from the beginning, we created, let's say, certain points which are important for us to have in order to be able to develop and to sell our solution, let's say. So let's say the Google solution, the Google platform it's a great solution. It's a great cloud platform, definitely. But we see it as not mature enough. There are not enough tools inside compared to other platforms. So more tools could be maybe in some cases better, of course. But this was not the point why we not decided for Google. The point why we didn't decide to use the Google was actually China. Because Google is, you are not able, if you are working as a retailer in China, you are not able to use Google. It's simple, behind the firewall, Chinese firewall, and it's not allowed to use it. So, and we see that China is a fiscal country, so we will definitely have a soon solution for China. If we would go in China with Google, our customers which are installing stores over there would never be able to use our solution. So that's why, unfortunately, even Google platform is great. We decided not to use it. With Amazon, AWS, the picture is similar, but a little bit different. Great solution, very mature, lots of tools, lots of development, knowledge, and so on, which you could use. So perfect, everything great. But unfortunately, Amazon is a retailer. And many of our customers see Amazon as a competitor. And if we would go with a platform which is from the competitor somehow, maybe this could be a problem. Even some of the customers that we asked if this would be okay for them told us, better not. So maybe it's not a problem, but it would be better if you're not using it. So at the end, we ended with the decision to run or to develop on the Microsoft Cloud platform. And this is where we are today. Maybe, Roland, you can give us more points why we decided even additionally for Microsoft.
Yes, in addition to this investigation, we already have some some codes, and we have some implemented functionalities on the Microsoft-based technology, which was also plus into the direction of the Azure. Then we already have a .NET resources and MS SQL resources in the company. So idea is to reuse these people, to not try to have to learn different technology or to need to employ additional resources. And of course, we have many years experience with the Microsoft development environment and documentation. And we don't have it, for example, for Amazon. So, and this was also one plus for the Azure selection. And we already have some experience with Azure because we have started to work and try to implement something to see how it's work, product and service we can use from the Microsoft. So we are focusing to use microservices, for example, Azure batch services, service bus, also events. It's a very powerful things, especially in the infrastructure area where we, for example, able to capture different event directly on the devices and send it in some event hub and then try to filter it and base some statistic reporting on this. Also, good benefit is to use the infrastructure as services, especially for the big data, where you, for example, collect a lot of information from the store. You can put in NoSQL environment. Also, there are, for example, SQL Server we can use on the premise. Then we have a security. We are really not experts in the security, and today detecting and blocking different cybersecurity threats, it's became a problem, and also to fulfill different security environments if we want to integrate with other companies which are cloud-based. Then, for example, important topic, it's a performance and scalability. From the performance point of view, we try to check what others are doing. For example, we checked, and we have good experience in, for example, online software fiscalization type like Czech Republic, Slovenia, Croatia, and we measured by checking millions of transactions, and we concluded, for example, handling on one single transaction usually will take between 600 and 800 milliseconds in these countries. There is also, for example, we checked some suppliers of the fiscal suppliers in Germany and Austria, like Prime, Sign, Deutsche Fiscali. So they have a better performance. Most probably they also handle less transaction, but they are below 500 milliseconds. And these numbers has to be taken in consideration because if you add on top some handling, your response time will be a little bit slower. Yeah. Good things also from Azure platform is the support of this lot of data. One also important things which we are also playing with, it's a deployment, because even we have a cloud solution, we need to think how to support offline scenario, and to support offline scenario, we most probably in this environment need to provide some local components which will run locally in the store. And also, I think it's very important thing is try to automate issue recognition in the system and try to fix it. And we are also try to investigate how we can automate it, maybe try to use some artificial intelligence to do it. So there is a lot of things to explore, and there are a lot of steps what has to be done.
Maybe to pick up 2 points which I think are really important. One of them is timing. So you just mentioned some results that we got after analyzing the fiscal authority cloud solutions, let's say. And this is on one side very positive because all those cloud solutions are very fast actually. So it's everything under the second. So this is great. But this is at the same time creating the, let's say, the challenge for the middleware like we are, because our timing to react and to do something will be added to the, for example, in those countries, will be added to the reaction time of the governmental server. So this means if we need a half a second and they need half a second, the POS will need 1 second. So this means that we have to be very restrictive regarding performance, and this is putting us into a situation which is very difficult, even more difficult than maybe for the POS solution. But the POS solution in the cloud will have the same issue, because the time that cloud-based POS needs to react and to do something will be also added to the time of the governmental server, and everything together will be the customer handling time. So the POS solution is very time sensitive in certain retail environments and retail concepts. So this is one point which I think is very important. And another point which maybe we should stress a little bit more is the deployment issue. Usually, if we are installing the new versions of whatever POS application in the store or our middleware or whatever, you test it first. So you install it first on the certain machines in the certain stores, and you check in the real life environment how it's working. Are there any bugs? Are there any problems in the real life environment? If you have a cloud-based solution, then this typical argument which everybody is telling to the retailer, you just install on the certain central point the new version and you are good to go, great deployment. Not really, because then the retailer cannot test it. They will have, in that case, just one version, and they are forced to roll out all the stores at once. The other way around would be to have the two different versions of the POS cloud-based microservices or elements or whatever you are using, one which is new one and old one, and then you are using the new one for the pilot store, you check everything, and if this is okay, then you switch the stores to the new one. This is a really complex issue. So people are not really thinking about that, but I know it from our projects. It's a complex issue, right?
Yes, you're right. These are the complex issue which has to address somehow. For the performance point of view, we already tested and with these microservices, and we are going to build in the range of 200-300 milliseconds. This is our goal. So the first measuring it's give us the good sign, and we are working on optimization. Also for development, we think a lot, especially if you compare to retailer. So for example, retailer is a little bit more flexible because it's an environment that you have a single type of software implementation, but the challenge for the middleware supplier is even higher. So we can, for example, have a situation that we need to change something due to regulation in the government. And for example, we put a new version of the microservice, then we need to support piloting, for example, if to provide someone possibility to check if everything went fine. But we can even experience that someone even cannot change nothing in a certain period because they don't have resources on the project, or they even don't have resources because they move to a completely different solution. So in the middleware scenario, it's even more complex if you compare to the normal cloud scenarios.
Maybe just to add, because if you are talking about that, I was just thinking about the project that we had and the POS software that I was as well responsible for as in my previous life at Diebold Nixdorf. There were situations where we had a very highly customized solutions for different customers. So this means one big customer or one big retail chain, international chain, had owned customized version of the POS. The another one has also owned customized version. Even if you are just customizing parts of the POS solution, usually every customer has own customized version. And now imagine how big is the effort to manage all these different versions on one cloud. The effort is quite same as to manage it not in the cloud. So because you have to have a version control system which is supporting that, and the cloud is then just deployment. So if somebody is telling you that if you have the cloud solution, you don't have problems with deployment, take it easy. It's not so simple. It's not just put it on the central system and good to go. It's not web page where everybody has to consume the new version and you put it on the web server and that's it. If you call it, you will have it. It's more complex, definitely.
Yes, definitely.
So we are coming to the end of our session. I'm sorry for that because I enjoyed it a lot and I hope all of you enjoyed it as well like we did. I want to invite you first to enjoy our next event, and this will be very interesting video on YouTube channel. And next week, Tuesday, we will talk about Serbian fiscal law, because first, Serbian fiscal law is just changing. The changes are extreme. And I think it's very important to know the details. And one of the details that we will handle next time is what to do with old fiscal hardware. Imagine the situation. You have a new fiscal law. You don't need fiscal printers anymore. And you have chain with 500 stores. In every store, 10 printers. So you have 5,000 printers. What to do with them? It's not that easy. So how to defiscalize them? Let's call it like this. This is what we will handle next Tuesday. In the week after that, again, Tuesday, 3 o'clock, we will have again live session like we have it today. And then we will talk about the German fiscalization, about the challenges, major points, and so on. So feel free to join us in all those sessions that are coming. If you have any questions, just feel free to put it into the comment. We will answer them now. Or, of course, you can contact us on any social network or mail or whatever. We are there to talk to you. The last point that I want to tell you, check our internet portal. It's exactly www.fiscalrequirements.com. You can find over there lots of documents, how-tos, videos, webinars, and whatever from 17 different fiscal countries. The problem that you are not able to find the laws and the how-tos and best practices and so on was yesterday. With portal, you don't have it anymore. Thank you very much. That's everything from my side. It was great to talk to you. Roland, you want to close up with some words or?
Thank you for all. See you next time.
Thank you very much, guys. See you next time. Enjoy your time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.